What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Vanflip podcast. Today I'm joined by Joe Bad and Patrick from Fit from an Autopsy. Welcome to the show, boys.
What's going on?
Well, we've had, at least Joe and I have had like 20 minutes or so to converse waiting on Patrick.
All right.
We went through a lot of things that I would consider great podcast conversation, but here we are, starting it all back over again.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all good, brother. You're all good. Glad you made it through all that horrible Atlanta traffic. That's all.
Yeah. Wonderful time to be alive in Atlanta.
Yeah. You guys are currently, gearing up for another album release, The Nothing That Is, which is out October 25th through Nuclear Blast. You guys delivered a single recently, Hostage. And one of the first questions that I really wanted to ask before we get into like conversating is the last record you guys did in 2022, What the Future Holds, did quite well, at least as far as it did quite well. It also charted, on Billboard and such like that. And that was like your second time, I think you guys did that.
I think third.
Third?
Third, yeah.
Okay.
I think What the Future Holds, I think I'm pretty sure, not What the Future Holds, Great Collapse may have charted. I could be wrong.
That did.
And then See a Tragic Beast also charted. And then, because that was through COVID. And then What the Future Holds. So that would be three. Yeah.
Do you know, because it's not listed, I didn't see that on the Wikipedia when I checked it. Do you know what the chart was?
Good old wiki, dude.
For the Sea of Tragic Beast?
Let's take a look. Billboard charts.
Because I know that, I know that the Great Collapse was, at least in the top 200 was, it says on the
I think it was the first time we hit the top 200. Source charts. It was 199.
The Great Collapse.
Peak position on the top 200, and then number 13, Top Hard Rock, and number 2, Heat Seeker.
Right. And the Sea of Tragic Beast, that's the one I was kind of wondering. Because the last one went to 23 on the Billboard chart. So it's quite a jump. And I was just curious as to how that happened and what the trajectory of the next album might be, obviously.
Sea of Tragic Beast, Billboard charts.
I'll play for the charts, dude. I'll play for the people.
I get it. No, I get it.
It doesn't have, this one doesn't have a charts listing, but I'm pretty sure it did.
Either way, that is a big jump from, barely getting into the charts to getting into the top 25. So
top 25 is pretty crazy.
1,000,000%. Like, who knew that would ever happen?
So the trajectory of the band and the success of the band, not that it's, pivoted or pivotal to the Billboard charts, but like you were saying, Joe, you play for the people. That means a lot more people, though, might be listening, right?
True. Yeah, absolutely. A lot more like people that maybe wouldn't have. And I feel like that's happened a lot, like since COVID. There's been a lot more like fans that have been going more towards like understanding like, hey, I might be actually into metal music. There was a lot of stuff on the internet that was able to like be more accessible to a wider array of people, which I thought was pretty cool because then it just opened up a little floodgate for us as well, Yeah,
COVID did something crazy for us. Like what we never thought like being stuck in the house would make things kind of happen. But I think people had time and, everybody kind of got their little influx of money and people were buying records and listening to new music. And I think some people that had maybe given up on the band in the beginning might have revisited a little bit. And I think some people that never had the opportunity or didn't think they would care to spent so much time divulging into music that they had the opportunity to hear what we're doing and the changes that we were making. And it hit. And we actually ended up like doing really, really well through COVID as far as like record sales. And like, we even managed to kind of like recoup on all our records with the label. And it did a really cool thing for us. It made it much more comfortable when we tour because we don't have any like money hanging over our heads from past recordings and stuff, and we can move into doing better things. It's definitely like a cool moment where something positive came out of COVID for a band.
Yeah.
We're really lucky.
I think it's just you telling Will to stop playing live bass or stop playing bass live, and then you hired Peter on as a bass player, and that really upped the trajectory of the band's success.
Do you want like the actual story? Like everybody asks us that, and we talk about it occasionally, but I feel like maybe give like a really brief kind of summary of how that happened. We recorded and wrote The Process of Human Extermination like any other band would. We got in a room together. And, this is before Joe. And we had our old singer. And it was actually everybody in the band was different except for me and Will at that point. Mm-hmm. And we wrote that record traditionally, in a room together. Recorded it, did the whole thing. And then we started touring a little bit. And Will realized, hey, man, I'm getting busier doing this production engineering thing, and I really want a future in this. So by the time we got through Hellbound, which Will kind of started writing more on his own at that point and really like digging into records and doing things the way we do it now. And it was like, either I'm going to leave the band and go do this, or you're going to tour and I'm going to stay behind and we're going to hire somebody so we can keep writing music. And Will, his passion is writing music. I mean, he's in 19 bands. He's worked with so many people, and he's one of the most creative people that I think Joe would agree. Like, he hears things so differently than I do, and that Joe does than you do. And he just understands like how to do things that I don't get. So, there's always one person that's the driving force behind writing music in every band. People have their contributions just like everybody in Fit does, but Will doesn't tour with us because it didn't make sense at the time. But fast forward, we're 17 years in as a band.
Yeah.
So fast forward into that, now Will has more time because he's established in his career. But for him to step back into Fit for an Autopsy doesn't make any sense, because Whitechapel tours with 3 guitar players, not Fit for an Autopsy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's their gig. And also, like, it wouldn't make sense. We've been touring together as a unit that we're like live, we're very tight. So to add a new element would throw a wrench in the works a little bit. So we just decided that this is the lineup. So Will's going to keep writing for the band. He is the main contributor. We get to write solos. Joe gets to write lyrics with him. And, Joe's really good at putting together like cadences and like vocal structure. So they work on that together. Like, we all have our lane that we all do, but I mean, Will's the guy, and we're lucky.
It's nice to have someone that pushes you to kind of step outside and like your box a little bit and kind of show you a couple things that maybe you didn't know you could do. Or like, I'll just randomly do something that he's like, where the fuck did that voice come from? I was like, I don't know. We were just sitting here and it just happened. Like, it's just cool. He's very, very fun to work with on the production side of things, because like I said, he does help me push myself to like limits that I didn't even know I was capable of doing. So it's like super cool.
So it's fun and it's stressful. Yeah. It's a lot of things.
So is Will the one that the angry fans should blame for your clean singing then, Joe?
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
Let's be honest. Okay, wait. This is a great segue. We talked about the importance of Will Putney. Let's talk about the importance of Joe Bad, right? But like, again, Joe was not in the band for these things. This is why we like doing interviews together, because he knows shit I don't, and I know shit that he was just not involved in. But we went through like a struggle for a minute when we lost our original singer, and we thought for a minute it was like, what are we going to do? And then, Will's like, maybe we should call it. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not going to let one person ruin that. And then we tried to work with a couple of people, and we were actually out on tour with somebody who wasn't quite hitting the mark for what we wanted. And then Tim played Refuge, which is Joe's old band from Long Island song, this new track that they did. And I was like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, holy shit. Like, why don't we? And he's like, well, I know him. And I'm like, fucking Tim Howley. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is the guy. This is absolutely the guy. And then I called Will, and we sent it to Will, and Will called me back and yelled at me, like, why haven't you been telling me about this? I was like, I didn't even know he existed. So within a week of Joe and Will having a phone call, Joe was in the band and we're getting ready to record Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell.
I recorded the entire album in 5 days.
5 days.
all the lyrics or everything was written. He's like, I just need a singer. And I was like,
and dude,
here I am.
Joe crushed, like, performance-wise, unbelievable. Will was calling me just stoked about how fast it was happening and, like, how Joe was on his mark. And then fast forward, I don't know where it falls in the timeline exactly, but we did a 9 Inch Nails cover. And we did a cover
right before the Great Collapse.
Yeah, we released the first Depression session. It was the one with the Casey Strain, Doctor's Murder, and Us. And we did Perfect Drug. And Joe did clean vocals on that. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I expected. And then Will realized, wait a minute, we can actually do all the stuff we've always wanted to do because this guy can do that. So what you're hearing is this progression that we've all wanted to do. I mean, it's so rare that I walk in and hear Joe listening to a death metal record. He likes like Michael Jackson in Paris.
Hell yeah,
like,
Joe. Hell yeah.
Outside of the box. And I listen to like Steely Dan and John Mayer and
hell yeah, Patrick.
Things like, now. You know, that's like all my growing up stuff. And then don't get me wrong, like I also like extreme death metal and all the crazy stuff, but like we all like things that are outside of the aggressive music world. So how do we incorporate all the stuff that we love? And this kind of stuff can just make our band a little bigger. It can make people realize that we have the ability to step into different worlds and tour with different bands, but still remain heavy like Fit does. So there's a lot of things in between all that. But I mean, the birth of Joe Bad and Fit for an Autopsy was like a game changer because our old singer was notable and he was good at what he did.
Very good at what he did.
I mean, one of the best at what he did and one of the first at what he did in our world, you know, but Joe is better. And the reason Joe is better is don't make cute faces, dude.
It's just
no.
Better, but I don't like the word better.
Self-deprecation is not why we're here.
I don't like the word
better. No, because you can do the thing. You can make the noises that he makes.
More versatile.
Sure, you're more versatile. You have a bigger bag of tricks, which makes you more accessible to a crowd, different crowds of people, like what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So because of that, for what we want to do, it makes you a better vocalist for the band. It really does. And I'm not talking shit about Nate. That dude's a powerhouse, right? Yeah. But you hold different keys to different doors that a lot of people can't do. So it did change the dynamic of the band. We went from being what we were to what we're becoming. And I don't even know where that's going, but the new record is fucking cool. And I'm excited. That was a exciting recording process. And Joe really, I mean, the vocal performance, in my opinion, on this record is the best I've ever seen. And maybe the most standout part of this whole record. And I'm not just kissing my singer's ass. Like he really went above. He really. I was
going to say, I feel like this is probably some of my best work for sure. It's been a really long road to get to where I feel super comfortable with myself and my voice. I feel like all singers have that thing where they're just like, you know, that you get in ruts where you're just like, I don't know if I'm like super sick at what I do. And I don't know if I've got like this whole bag of tricks, you know what I'm saying? But like when I listen back to this record, because that's all I've been listening to, just getting ready for tours and coming up. And I'm just like, wow, like this is really cool. Like, and now I'm like already excited to do another album, you know what I'm saying, to see what else happens. But it's cool because like I went back and listened to the older stuff that I did with Fit, and I'm like, just listening to my voice progress over the years is just, it's super wild to just see how much it's changed and how much more control I have, and so many different voices that just keep like coming out of nowhere. And I'm just like, wow, this is really fun.
Yeah.
But it's been really cool. I feel like this is definitely one of my best performances on this album for sure. I definitely had a lot of fun with it. I think I had a lot more creative freedom with it as well. Me and Will have been working a lot together with vocals, and over the years he's like trusted me a lot more with my ideas a little bit. And then like with this one, it felt like he was like full hands off. He was like, just do what you do. And I was just like, okay. And then we just wrote some really cool shit, and super excited about that. It was a fun process. We I always have a lot of fun recording with Will because we just like find fun little things that we just like just the way I say certain words, we were like laughing about it. We were just like, that is the funniest way to say something. It sounds sick, but it's just so funny how you say it. And it's just like, that's what makes it cool. That's what makes it fun too.
But that's also like, you know, because, you know, Pat just called you out for listening to pop music and stuff like that. But that's also
not calling me out, dude. I'm out here.
There's nothing wrong with pop music.
I agree.
Everybody that I went to school with, when they see what I do now, they're just like, I never in a million years would have expected you to be doing a band like this and like singing like this, because that is not what you were doing when you were growing up.
They were expecting Boys to Men.
There you go. Yeah. ABC, BBD, baby.
I was a big Usher guy.
Oh my God. No, but I was just going to say that because, you know, in pop and hip hop and stuff like that, a lot of singers or vocalists in those kind of projects or groups, you know, they'll say things a little differently too, just to get the rhyme scheme or, you know, all that together.
So. Yeah. It just, it's just cadence and just like the approach of it. And just like, I don't know. I feel like the way you say things can create a certain emotion in the voice too, you know? And I feel like that's been a huge thing that Fiffer and Autopsy has been doing a lot lately, is really showing emotion in each track, whether it's like pissed off, angry, sad, dark, and depressed, you know, like there's a lot of emotion behind the vocals, but they're also bouncing off of these emotional guitar riffs, whether, like I said, whether it's like angry guitar riff or like sad guitar riff or like gloomy guitar riff, just like it kind of all matches and mixes together. So it just feels really, really like raw and real.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things on the new record is like the last track on every record is always one of those things for me that I'm like, man, this is like a big departure from what we normally do. Like Napalm Dreams was one of those. And then I think maybe on the last record, well, there was a lot of it, but the song Two Towers really stands out to me as like a very different version of what we do. And the last song on this record is another one of those songs where like there's so much emotion. And like, if you know Joe and you know what his life has been, you understand where it comes from. But the connection that I have with that last track on this new record, like the first time I heard it, like I needed a minute. Like it's something. Yeah, I like got like emotional and I had to like walk away from it because, you know, like music brings things out of people, you know, and whether you're angry or sad or, you know, you're in love or you had a breakup or you know, something happens, like there's always something. And when that's like metal, when people are like, how can you listen to this guy screaming into a 55-gallon drum? And I'm like, well, haven't you ever been angry before? Like it makes sense. It ties into emotion. But man, lyrically, vocally, that last song on this record, and I can't give any names or anything like that, but when this record drops, that song, like, just know if it connects with you, it connected with me, and I'm in the band. And I had to, like, once I heard, you know, as the song's getting built, you hear the guitar riffs, you're like, this is cool. And then you hear the bass, and then there's drums, and you're like, oh, this is great. But when I heard Joe's vocals, and I heard the way that Joe is singing and the emotion in his voice and knowing Joe and knowing, you know, things about him, like that, I instantly started feeling emotional. And I'm very, very proud of where this record's going to go and what it's going to do. And, you know, of course we have the naysayers that are on the internet saying, oh, clean vocals. But when they hear the record, the songs that don't have clean vocals, I promise you're not ready, because it's some of the heaviest, most aggressive stuff we've ever done. Some of the lyrical content is pretty crazy. And there's a couple tracks on there that are they're gonna
piss some people off
or make people go, holy shit. Like there's some stuff like we decided that if we're going to go full out, we're going to go for it. And the thing I like about Will is even when I'm nervous about doing stuff, he has this way of making me feel like this is what we believe, so we have to do this. Like, can't be a hypocrite, you know? So, you know, we did some stuff on this record, and I'm fucking proud of it. You know, we got another video that just got tied up that's got some really deep lyrics and some imagery in the video that's maybe some trigger alert stuff for some people, you know, like there's some pretty dark stuff, and we always keep it pretty dark with the lyrical content, but like, man, this record definitely explores it all. So I'm really proud of this one.
Well, back to that whole like last song of each album that we've done is always like something that's super, super different, where it just kind of like it's just like an emotional roller coaster. Like the last album, was it The Man That I Was Not? That was the last track.
Also another very emotional song.
It's always like the last track on the albums for us. That's like one of my favorite tracks, just because that's the one that really ties everything together and just like is the most different. And I've had the most fun with, and I've like surprised myself with a lot of things. But I also just love the roller coaster of like varied range that I can throw in that song too, because it has everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like super, super cool. I always end up really loving the last song on our albums, and I'm usually not a fan of the last song on a lot of albums, you know.
Yeah.
Usually I'm just like,
I feel like a lot of bands put their fluff at the end of a record.
Yeah.
And we always put something that's like a banger and like a different. And it's like, okay, like this is the end of the record. It's kind of winding down. Let's pull them back in and grab them. I feel like our fluff song is like, I actually feel like this record.
I don't think we have any fluff songs on
not
this
on
one.
this one.
On this one, I feel like there's something.
No filler.
If you're paying attention, there's some real cool shit in each song where you're just like, that's fucking different. That's fucking sick. Like, but it's not like there's no lulls in this one, I feel.
Yeah. Remember how hard I was standing against Napalm Dreams?
And so hard. And I was like,
I was like, no.
We originally had it. Well, because the first version we had of it, I was actually singing. Like there was like full on clean sings in it, and not everyone was ready for it. So we were like,
wasn't time.
We were like, okay, all right, we'll take it back just a second, but we're going to revisit this. We're going to talk about this at the dinner table later. You know,
Will was really mad at me for a little while because I just couldn't wrap myself around it. But I mean, it's one of my favorite songs that we've ever done. You know, and it's like
I wish we got to do that one live, but I feel like it's just like such a weird fit into the set. Like, where do you put that song?
I think it would be like a good if we did like an encore kind of song or something like that, like because it could bring the crowd down. You know what I mean? Well, it's like it's definitely not a mid-set kind of song.
You can always just wait 5 years and do the 10-year anniversary of album full playthrough. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
You're making my job so hard right now. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Speaking of, writing and doing vocals and stuff like that, you had said earlier, obviously, that when you joined the band, Joe, there was already lyrics written for you. So at this particular point, I would assume it's all like a group effort. You're writing lyrics as well, and that's why it kind of pertains closely to like what you're doing and what you've done in the past, your feelings and all that stuff.
And it's still mostly Will with the main, because like, dude, I write like a fucking child sometimes. Like sometimes he can articulate things a lot. Well, not sometimes. All the time
he's like your lyric chat GPT, I guess.
He's my
Will GPT.
He's my Will GPT. Yeah. He's my Will GPT. But yeah, no, he's like that main force there. But I just put the performance there and put the ideas to light in so much of a different way that he doesn't expect it. He's just like, I was thinking of it this way, but now this way is just like, wow, this is way more than what I expected. And we had a lot of discussions about that while we were there. Like after each song was tracked, we'd sit there and listen to it. And he's like, damn, like you blew me away on this one. Like this one's like way cooler than I expected it to be. And each track. And that's what made me feel like super awesome in the studio too. I was just like, this is cool, because I know Will works with like a lot of really, really big artists that come out with some really cool stuff, a lot of really good singers too. So to hear him say a lot of those things is also really nice to hear. I know he's in my band, but like at the same time, like I don't get to see him that often or work with him that often, just once every couple of years when we put out an album.
It feels like.
You know,
did you guys?
We're all so busy, you know.
Of course, yeah.
We all don't live in the same place anymore either. I don't live like an hour drive away from him anymore. You know.
Yeah, that used to be like
you live the closest to each other. Yeah. Oh no, Tim and Will. What were you going to say?
It kind of used the thing back in the day. Like all these people in the bands would live in the same town or at least state, and then now it's like everyone I talk to. Well, most of the bands I talk to have some kind of success, so they're not just like local yokel bands or regional acts. So. When I talk to bands, it's like, yeah, so-and-so lives in California, I live in New York. And this is like, well, how the hell does that fucking work? As someone who's never done that themselves, like, any kind of project I've been a part of is just like my friends locally or some people locally.
Yeah.
So
as long as you have like a
difficult.
home base where you guys all fly to, you know, lately we've just been using Trivium and Sanger. So
last tour we warmed up in Florida because we started there. Next tour we start in Worcester, Mass, which is not too far from New Jersey. So we'll use Will's studio for that. But
what was it, Hellhound?
Yeah, Hellhound. But I think, you know,
no, we have production, so
we have production, so we're going to need a bigger area. We're actually it's kind of cool a little bit, but we're stepping up our production for this tour. It's bigger rooms, bigger people, more people, bigger venue, bigger stage. So we're doing some cool light show stuff and like, you know, some interesting stuff with the backdrops, and we're gonna make it like a show. Like we're trying to step it all up. So we will be practicing in either New Jersey or perhaps maybe even at the first venue, depending on how it all pans out. But yeah, the internet is awesome. Like we can do this. We can, you know, when I'm having a problem with a riff, I call Tim and I'm like, yo, this doesn't feel right. Like, what am I doing wrong? Or I call Will and he sends me a video and I open it up and I can just do it and learn it if it doesn't feel right, or if I'm a fret off or something like that. And believe it or not, we have become a very tight live band because of the fact that we all have to work to be prepared before we get there. Yeah. It's not like living at home where you can use an excuse. Like if you come to practice and you don't know the parts, like you're in trouble. And this is like a job now. You know what I mean? Like we pay our bills with this and we're doing the thing. So it's like, got to take it seriously. We got to do the part. We got to put on the show. You know, if you're going to wear the khakis, you got to sell the cookies. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can't like,
I don't know that saying, but Joe and I are like, I don't know what that means.
It's from it's from basketball.
Okay.
He's talking about being a Girl Scout.
I was like,
you're gonna wear the outfit, you gotta sell the cookies.
One of Brenda's mom's pubes. Oh, another
one. So good. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like we're trying to like be professional and do the thing. So you know, you gotta be ready before you get there. And I think that's a lot of bands now. It's like you said, like, you know, people live all over the map and they come together and they rehearse for a week and then they go on the road for a month. But once we start touring, it doesn't matter anymore. Once we're like in tour mode, like, I mean, we do sometimes over 150 days a year. So, you know, when we're playing together that much live, like there's just no question. We're
just lock in. Yeah.
Yeah, we could take a month off and come back and have we've done it. We played, what was it, Blue Ridge? We were off for like a month and a half, and then
this last Blue Ridge we didn't get to play. We sat in the parking lot for fucking like 7 hours. They didn't give me a bathroom or water.
No bathroom, no water. Let's not talk bad about the festival. It happens. I
don't think they're going to be back around. So I mean,
I don't think so either. But you know what? I've learned the hard way that maybe keeping my mouth shut is the best source of course.
Just give me a water bottle next time. That's all I ask.
So anyway, there's plenty of
playing the game here. He's playing the game. You know, he's trying to play the game professionally.
But you know, you just got to be. You have to be a machine, and that's what we try to do. So living far apart from each other, while for a little while it was tough, we've kind of found our groove with it. You know. And we just get to the studio, we rehearse for 3 or 4 days and pack the trailer, get in the bus and get on the road.
As long as everyone does their homework while they're home and like just keeps their shit and their chops up while they're home, like we're good when we get together. But, you know, there's bands that like, it just won't, you know, there's some bands that'll just like, we'll hash it out when we get to the studio.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Hash that shit out now. So when you get there, it's not, you guys are like, oh, the riff is like this.
We were guilty. We were guilty for a little while. We did it for a little while, and then
we saw what that does, and then we switched it up and changed it, and everyone did their homework, and then we would come prepared to practice, and then it was just like, wow, night and day difference. It's like way less work and way less stressful just putting in the little bit of work that you have to put in at home. You know,
when you go on tour with a band like Trivium and you watch those dudes practice as a full band every day in their dressing room, it reminds you why you don't sound as good as them live. You know what I mean? Band, they're monsters. Constant practice.
They don't stop.
How long did it take you guys to adopt that mindset? Like, because obviously you've been a band for, you know, I don't know, what, decades now. So,
well, A long time. I would say after COVID, we really started locking it in. It became apparent to us that we had the opportunity to be like, I mean, because let's just be honest about it. Like you don't really see your band growing from the inside out the way that other people do. If you're really doing right and you're working hard. And also like, you don't always think that you have the opportunity to be that band. You know, a lot of bands ask you up for tours and you're not growing in the way that you want. So it's just, oh, well, you know, I'm doing this, but it's like, it's not as serious. And then something happens and you're like, okay, wait a minute, maybe it could be serious. And through COVID, the way we grew and how everything worked out, like that was the thing that made us realize that, you know, it's time to shit or get off the pot. And then, you know, me and Tim had a lot of long conversations about me in particular and my guitar playing and how I needed to apply myself to it more. And I did, and then started learning. And, you know, I started taking lessons from other guitar players. Joe started working on vocal stuff. He's doing his thing. Hosian is doing his thing. We're all working hard to do it. Luckily, Tim is one of those guys that could just not practice for a month and then pick his guitar up and be able to rip. He's just lucky. I'm not that lucky. And Will basically put it to us like, we have an opportunity to grow. So if you're not going to do the job, why are you in the band? And that was a real conversation. And I was like, shit, like it's time to step it up. So we all did. And now we're much more in communication with each other about the music. And something clicked one day like that. It just happened. And our sound guy that's out with us right now jumped in with us about a year ago. And he was like, man, you guys are easy to mix now. It's tighter than ever. And your tones are great. And like, to me, and he's Trivium's full-time sound guy. He works with Amon Amarth, like crazy bands. So I realized like, okay, we're doing the right thing. It's starting to progress. But yeah, we weren't always the tightest band. And I definitely feel like I was a significant part of that. And I had to really get my ass kicked to get myself in gear. And when that happens, you realize like there is sacrifice that needs to be made. And it's not all sugar cookies and fucking, khakis. You know, people cheering you on. Sometimes you got to work, you know what I mean?
Sometimes you wish it was just sugar cookies, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of want a sugar cookie.
I'd like
right
a
now.
chocolate chip cookie because, like we said earlier, I'm more of a chocolate.
You're
guy,
a big chocolate guy.
How about a peanut butter chocolate chip cookie?
You're really not into Snickerdoodles, dude?
I mean,
I'm not a Snickerdoodles guy.
Come on, no one's a Snickerdoodles guy for some reason. I don't know. I guess
I'm doing Thin Mints. I'm doing Thin Mints or chocolate chips.
Oh, Thin Mints are the hero of
in the freezer.
Yeah,
in the freezer.
Of course. Anyone that
put them in, crush them up, put them in vanilla ice cream. Poof.
Again, we before you got on the podcast, me and Joe were talking about things, and I'm just a chocolate guy. I don't fuck with any other candy, any other flavors of like, you know, treats, so to speak. But if it's chocolate, I'll do it. But it can't be like chocolate cheesecake or chocolate tiramisu or something like that because that's a little too much for me. But chocolate
cheesecake. Okay, look, cheesecake should just be cheesecake. There shouldn't even be strawberries on cheesecake. It should just be cheesecake.
I had a tres leche cheesecake that blew my mind the other day.
Absolutely not. Too many flavors.
Was it from the factory? The Cheesecake Factory?
They don't even know how to make a good cheesecake anymore. They pretend.
Shit. Yeah, no shit.
They just have to keep the name alive. Yeah.
So anyway, not to get super off topic there, but Pat, what was it like, you know, having to come, like, I guess that come to Jesus moment of having like people in the band come to you talking about applying yourself or whatnot. And then on top of that, like you said, you were taking lessons from the guitar players. And at this particular point, you've been in the band over 15 years plus, I would assume. So like,
no, it's not. We're not that far. I mean, the band's been a band since 2007. First record release was 2011. This was maybe like Great Collapse era.
Okay.
And
so like 10 years after or something like that.
Yeah, it's like it's a few years in and the music started getting harder. And, you know, the earlier stuff was a little bit easier to play. But as it started to progress, I started to fall behind. And people, you know, I knew it and I knew I was having problems with it. And I started talking to Tim. And then, you know, Will was like, yo, you got to tighten this up. So I did, you know, and like one of the honest things about me is I don't think I really understood why it was a problem until it was presented to me the way that it was. You know, sometimes you got to look at yourself, you know, and it was tough. It was embarrassing. It was a kick to my ego, and but I think I took it with stride. I actually started working with Dave Davidson from Revocation, who was incredible. Wes Hauk helped me out a bunch. And, there's a guy named Sean Ash that I've been weekly lessons with just to kind of build my chops. And like all of these people like really helped me realize that it's not that and this is something that Dave said to me, that I said to Will, that we all kind of agree on. It's not that I can't learn it. It's I have a learning disability. I had a learning disability when I was a kid. So like it hinders my ability to learn the things in a way that other people would learn them in. I had to kind of start to figure out what I needed to learn that stuff. So I found a bunch of weaknesses, and I tried really hard to work around them, and then kind of realized you can't do that. And I just had to rebuild. Luckily, like I have a pretty steady right hand, and I just had to get my hands in sync a little more, wrap myself around theory a little bit. And then, it was humbling, but I'm a better player and my band is better. And I feel better at the end of every set than I've ever felt as a guitar player. So, like it's something we talk about a lot. There's always going to be some kid in a basement somewhere that's better than all of us.
Yeah.
Right. But that kid might not be willing to take all the sacrifice that you have to take and apply it to touring and becoming a band member. And being a guitar player and playing guitar in a band are two widely different jobs.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to be a team player. I had to learn how to be humble, and it helped me change a lot of things about myself in general. So it was a blow, but I'm better for it.
Well, congratulations on that altogether.
Thanks. I don't know. I still think I suck at guitar, but
that's just the self-deprecating views of most of us.
I know. I'm going back on my word, but
I think I suck at everything too. But people tell me otherwise, and I'm like, dude, no, I'm just a fucking loser, dude. It's all good.
Seem like a great guy.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm a loser. Anyway, moving on to you were talking about the getting ready for tour. You got one of those coming up. How do you do? Right, that's true. I'm thinking of the North American tour that was just previously announced. How do you guys have a hand in picking like who's on the support card, and if so, like what was the choice of like Body Snatcher and Distant and bands like that?
I guess it's like
or do you get presented with a package or ideas or something?
No, I think we build the package. I think we'll call each other, hey Joe, you have any bands that you like? Any bands you want to? We toured with this band. We played a festival with that band. They were really cool. Their music's really good. Or sometimes it's like, hey, like I know you don't really know this band, but they're an up and comer and they're doing really well, and we need a 2 of or a 3 of, go visit this. Or like we're touring with Silosis on both of these tours. Actually, they're a little earlier in the lineup in the US tour and a little direct support in Europe. So that's a band we want to tour with. Josh Middleton's awesome. And, we've known him from him being in Architects, and then, he's rebuilding Silosis. So like just all these different things, management and booking agencies and all that stuff influences it. But at the end of the day, we take who we like from the offers that we get, but also we'll be like, no, like we don't want to do that. We want to do this band. And this is why. Like Body Snatcher was a no-brainer. All the Kyles in that band and everybody else are awesome. They're super nice people. They play super heavy, aggressive music. And they recorded with Will. They're just down to earth, got to spend some time with those dudes. And we know a couple of them from bands they were in from before, so that's easy. The band Distant is, deathcore heavy band, do what they do. They're coming up. They're from Europe. We're bringing them over here. That's cool. Again, like I said, with Silosis, that's a no-brainer. Josh is a monster player and their band's super tight. And Judiciary, we've, played with Izzy's other band and they're really good and they're doing really well. It's just a really strong, easy package.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot of ass beating music going on.
Yeah, it's a heavy fucking tour.
It's a nice little mix of genre within the metal world too. It's not just everyone's an ass beater. It's the ass beater tour of ass beaters. It's like
right.
there's a nice little array of everything that's going on. So it's like, for at least like being a listener at the show, you're not hearing the same riff over and over in the same vein. You're just like, you're getting a full different experience each time a band sets up on stage, which I think is really cool.
Mixed bill tours forever.
Yeah.
Mixed bill tours forever, dude. So not boring. You know what I mean? But I think we're also trying to prove that we can tour with everyone. We can do a super heavy tour, like we did the us Acacia Strain Full of Hell band tour, which was 4 extremely different bands, right? I would say the 2 bands that are closest on that would be us and the Acacia Strain, but still quite different, especially the directions that we're growing in. And then Full of Hell is just like chaos. And then Primitive Man is just a stoner band.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and that tour did extremely well for everyone. And we still see Full of Hell shirts and Primitive Man shirts showing up at our shows all the time. So it's like, there's room for them. There's room for a mixed bill tour. But I think Joe's right. I think it attracts a wider array of music, because some people like Distant, they're going to discover Body Snatchers. Some people like us, they're going to discover Silosis. And, I feel like Fit fans are open because we've always done weird, different touring. Like, we're touring with Sepultura, and then we're touring with Art is Murder, and then we're touring with Trivium and Arch Enemy's on that tour. And like, we've always tried to mix that stuff up. You know what I mean? I think that's how you have longevity.
Yeah, of course. Not to detract too much from current times and current happenings, but how did you guys get into this unsavory world of heavy music and deathcore? Like, because we briefly, alluded that you guys listened to other things like Steely Dan and Michael Jackson, which we'll get back into that too very shortly here. But how did you guys like fall into the cracks of like underground extreme music?
Well, as a band or individuals?
Individually.
I mean, I guess for me, real quick, Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack got me into listening to more like punk and hardcore, and then watching wrestling growing up. Fucking the Game coming out there to fucking Motorhead, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, I gotta like this shit. And then I like played a lot of football in high school and stuff, so like I was always trying to pump people up in the locker room, so I'd only play heavy shit, and they'd get mad and turn on something else. They're like, nah, Lil Wayne. I was like, that doesn't pump me up. I don't want to hit you right now. I just want to dance with you in the locker room with our clothes on.
Adorable. For me, I just got this image of you and the whole football team.
Right, that's it.
I was painting it.
That's why I said it.
Yeah, I was painting
and I like the little pause where you gave me a minute to think about it.
Yeah.
For me, it was my older brother.
Lucky. I wish I had an older brother or older friend that was, because I was the entry point for a lot of people and myself, but just the internet. I was a lonely kid on the internet. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, all good. That's why we're here. Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot. I was like 10 in '86, and my brother took me to my first like thrash metal show. And then 1987,
who was it? Do you know who it was? Can you remember?
It was like local show.
Okay.
It was Cyanide, Silo, Abaraxis, and I can't remember. There's one other band.
Okay.
And then I saw my second show was in New York City, and it was SOD and Exodus.
Okay.
And I think it was at the Roxy in New York. And then I started getting into like Black Flag and like more punk rock stuff. And, my brother was feeding me all of that. And then I discovered like the Cro-Mags and Uniform Choice and like all this like early hardcore stuff, like 86, 87, 88. And then, all the Metallica stuff was happening then, and Slayer, Rain and Blood came out in '86, and what is it? The Anthrax, Among the Living came out that year, and like I was 10 and being exposed to this insane stuff, and then my mom was into disco, and my dad,
mine too.
Yeah,
huge disco funk.
funk, disco, Motown. That was my mom's thing. And then my dad was into like Yes and Rush and Jimi Hendrix and ZZ Top. And my brother's feeding me all this metal. So I had all this music hitting me from all these different angles. And then I discovered like Madball and all those bands in the 90s and Biohazard and all that stuff and Machine Head and Megadeth and all this. I mean, it was the birth of it. But then like Obituary and Morbid Angel and Suffocation happened and my top was blown.
Wow.
Like I couldn't believe what I was listening to. And that was like middle school for me. So I was going into New York to see punk and hardcore bands with my brother. And then we were going and seeing like, there was a club called Obsessions in North Jersey. And we were seeing like tons of death metal bands there. And like, it just spiraled. And then I was just hooked, you know?
Yeah.
You mix heavy music with like a tumultuous childhood and crazy lifestyle, and you just running from one thing and trying to find another thing to run to. And that was my escape, you know, and that's what did it.
What made you guys decide like that's what I'd like to do? Like I would like, because obviously Joe's playing football. You obviously probably got into heavy music a little earlier because of your brother and influences and other stuff going on in New York and New Jersey. But at what point did you guys, you know, think like, I would like to sing in a band, or I like to play guitar in a band, or I just want to be in a band?
I basically had a choice. It was either like pretty much right after high school. It was like I could either go to college and try to play D1 football. I had 26 scholarship offers to go play football.
Geez, what were you playing? What position? Just so
I was a defensive tackle and fullback. So
you don't look that big on camera. As far as D tackle,
I'm 6 foot. I'm 6'2". I was a pretty big boy in school too. I was in the weight room all the time. It's
just total jock
still under there.
Just total jock
somewhere. Yeah, I was full on jock. But like, I was the jock that didn't hang out with the jocks because they didn't like me. I didn't have the cool shoes, or like I always hung out with the stoner kids who were skating,
just playing. Yeah, Tony Hawk.
Like, football would be over, and I'd go hang out with my degenerate friends, and they'd go be hanging out on their boats and their yachts on Long Island, thinking that they're really cool. It looks like they're all doing really well right now. That's the most sarcastic thing that I fucking could ever say.
I sense a little bitterness.
Yeah, I don't fucking care about.
So you turned down 26 scholarships, and then was like, you know what?
I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go to school for music. Went to school for music for 5 days. Decided never to show up again. Joined a band, and I was like, I'm just going to ride on this and see if I can just do this for a while. So it eventually happened. You know, I was sitting in the barbershop working one day. I was in 3 bands at the time, about to be in a 4th, and then Fit called me, and I was just like, "Hi, everybody!" And I was just like, "This is it. This is what I'm doing." I gave up the opportunity to own a barbershop, and that was already successful and doing pretty well. Owner didn't like me for that. He was like, "You could have this whole opportunity." I was like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna go be broke with these guys and like try to do some real cool shit." So I don't give a fuck about your money. I'll go. I saved up enough. I'm gonna go let this all deplete, and hopefully one day we can get back to square one.
By the end of this,
I warned them.
Yeah, they did. They literally warned me at dinner. They took me to Topaz, which is a very, very nice Thai restaurant in New Jersey. Really good tea. And they literally sat me down. They're like, "We know you do pretty well with like your barbering thing and everything got going on, but are you like completely okay with like not really making any money at all?"
Ramen.
And like without a question, I was just like, "Yeah, man, this is literally my dream. And I've made sacrifices my entire fucking life to be where I'm at, and I'm not going to stop making those sacrifices to do what I want to do. Because
hell yeah,
I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want.
Look at us now. We're 100-aires.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm still not exactly where I want to be, but you know what? I'm down to make every sacrifice I need to do what I have to do.
And you can always open up a barbershop.
I literally always can do that.
Right. Yeah. The opportunities of being in music or being in a band or touring have sometimes a finite.
Yeah, they have a shelf life. Yeah. So I'm trying to see how far we can push with it, because honestly, like I was like, we were thinking about it like not too long ago. Like, how much longer do you think something like this goes? And I'm just like, honestly, the sky's the limit at this point.
At this point, yeah. And because like I mean,
we've gotten to that point where the sky's the limit.
Much like you all probably had this with your parents or whatever when you were younger. as I am sitting here in a Limp Bizkit shirt, because I am from Jacksonville, where the
Fantastic.
birth of rap rock really happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta stop it. E-Town Concrete's been around a lot longer than
Hey,
they have.
there's a lot of people.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
There's a lot of people that hate that
but
There's a lot of people that hate that I do compare those two a lot alike. I think E-Town Concrete and Limp Bizkit are similar, a lot alike, and people hate that I say that.
Concrete smokes Limp Bizkit.
They're two different things, Pat.
Like,
They're two different things, Pat. They're two separate entities altogether. They serve different purposes.
One's more hardcore influence,
right?
With like a lot of hardcore
products.
background, and then one's very, very new metal.
But I mean, you could even go so far back as to say Leeway is the first metal band to have like hip hop style lyrics, because Eddie Leeway was doing that before everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, like when people really do the homework of hardcore and such like that, hip hop and hardcore and everything like that grew up together, especially in that time, in that world of New Jersey and New York and everything in the 80s.
Extremely similar cultures.
Exactly.
In the starts of it. Now hip hop has moved on to a much bigger,
of course,
crowd base and, corporation style businesses and things like that. But like beginning of hip hop and the beginning of hardcore, underground, backpack hardcore stuff, graffiti kind of went through both of those.
Yes.
If you were involved, they kind of crossed over, and there was like a lot of similarities. You go to a hip hop show in the late 80s, early 90s, or a hardcore show, small venues, very similar communities, and it just broke out differently.
Right. Totally.
Different kinds of successes. Yeah.
But where I was getting with that was
we broke them. Fuck.
Yeah, I got my train.
You were trying to tell me how Limp Bizkit was before.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, that's obviously true. The number one band of all time. But no, I'm not disrespecting anybody in E-Town by all means. That's a joke. Anyway, no, but like the shelf life of this type of music, or not shelf life, but the trajectory and the timeline that it could possibly go. Like my parents were like, this music will never last, and you won't listen to that in 20 years. Then fast forward, and like I literally saw Limp Bizkit this summer, you know what I mean? And it was all like, fuck yeah, dude. You know what I mean? So like it's good that all these things are coming back around in 20-year cycles for the most part. So, but again, like I didn't think that I would be listening to bands like that I grew up listening to, and when I first got into like metal and hardcore, like Poison the Well's still around, Florida band from
one of my personal favorite bands that I grew up listening to.
Who anyone that doesn't say that is kind of a little off.
Yeah.
But
that Opposite of December record is a banger, dude.
Yeah, Tear from the Red.
Tear from the Red's also good. Yep.
Guys, Version's the best record. Okay.
Stop it. I gotta go.
No, it is.
Nope.
Come on.
Tropic Rod had some bangers.
Which one?
Tropic Rod had some.
No, they definitely do. But I mean, I get that Opposite of December gets its due because obviously it's Opposite of December. But it's also a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids writing whatever, recording it in a tin can, trash can or whatever. And as the band grows, and like they did a great job of like the Deftones trajectory where nothing is ever really the same. But that fucking Versions record is fucking tight.
Man. It was very, very good. I like that record.
Can't argue favorites. Favorites are favorites for a reason.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I'm ranking
it was just cool to see that band progress into that world where it was just like, that's different for them, but like it's not bad. Like it's sick.
Yeah, and
I just love that people still care about it.
True. Yeah.
People love that band.
But a lot of bands do that too, and a lot of bands can't pull it off as great as certain bands do. But again, like going back to my point, I didn't really think that I'd be fucking listening to these guys still. I mean, nostalgically probably, but like I saw fucking Poison the Well in New York in January. We flew up specifically for that. And there's things that I still fuck with heavy 20 years later that I'm like, damn, am I really 40 years old now? Because I didn't think that I would be involved as heavily as I am. But what I'm saying is this, I don't want to call it movement, but this genre, these little pockets of music world continue to grow. And like I said earlier, I didn't think we'd be here now. So it'll be interesting when we're 60 years old, still doing probably the same thing. Because at this point, half, if not more than half of your life is spent in this world. So,
and I'm almost 60.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Yeah. I mean,
Gojira just played the fucking Olympics.
Exactly.
Dude.
Yeah.
An extreme metal band. Now I know they're more accessible.
Performance looks sick.
Unbelievable.
So cool.
And what I know, there's been controversy and all these things, but once you get past the goofy bullshit, Like, it's such an important thing. First of all, I love that France and Europe in general takes metal seriously in a way that America seems to deny. Like, Metallica is a much bigger band than Gojira, and you've never seen Metallica play an Olympic or I don't even think they've ever done like a Super Bowl or anything like that. Never. So kudos to France for being willing to take something as extreme as Gojira and make them the poster children of that area. Like, that's huge for metal.
Massive,
and people should feel great about that. And so, like, how cool is it that they've evolved from like Way of All Flesh era to where they are now, and they can be that accessible and still be successful. This is exactly what we were talking about with Poison the Well. Like, that is incredible to see. And think about it like this, dude. I saw Exodus when I was like 11, and we just played a tour with them.
Yeah.
And we closed every night but one. Well, two. One night they had a issue with their bus, and we had them close, and then they played in Anaheim, and that's just their area. And we were like, no way we're closing this night. Like, this is all you guys know. It was a co-headliner, but those guys were so gracious and so cool. They were like, no, we'll do the tour. We'll co-headline. You guys close every night except for 1 or 2 dates, and we're in. Bro, huge. And I was 11, and I'm 48. Like, I got to play with my heroes, and the people are still buying their records and still discovering Exodus right now.
Yeah. For
That's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
There's always going to be a youth movement that gets involved, and I think the more material, I will call it, that gets out there that's extreme music, again, people will funnel down the cracks and, ruin their lives like we all have. And, it's some kids are into the older shit. Some kids want to know the new shit. You know what I mean? Some kids will, even like the youth will love the way that the old 80s thrash sounds or metal sounds in general. Some won't. Like, I don't listen to a lot of older shit because, production and whatnot has gotten better over time. And I like, the way that it sounds current times. Because I used to like 2000 records, like records from the 2000s. But you listen to them now and you're like, oh my God, it sounds like shit.
Yeah, you got to posture yourself in a way where you're just there to hear the music.
Yeah, but, it is what it is.
That's why I hate black metal.
Is that the only reason? Is that the only reason why?
There's a lot of reasons that I hate black metal. But the production, people are like, some of the things they're saying are crazy. And I'm like, I can't hear any of the things that they're saying. So, yeah, I mean, there are certainly a lot more reasons to hate black metal. But the production is, you have to admit, out of all of the genres in the world, there is no production worse than black metal.
No one in this room here is gonna object to that. I wouldn't. I'm not gonna go to bat for black metal production at all.
Never.
But fuck, I got fucking sidetracked again, dude. Black metal production. That wasn't what we're talking about.
You're talking about bands that you've been listening to for 20 years.
Yeah, I think we got past that. I don't know. Let's just move on to the next thing.
I'm ready.
Cool. Joe, I want to know, because we heard a lot about this particular project a couple of years ago that I don't think really anything came of it, but the Big Six. What the heck is all that?
Yeah. Why don't we just go ahead and skip right over this question?
All right.
You know what I think we should do? I think we should skip over this question.
All right. Moving on. Moving on. You are a pop guy and a rap guy. I would assume you listened. Maybe not rap guy. You didn't like Lil Wayne in the locker room, so I don't know. But.
I mean, no. Fucking Lil Wayne rules. By the way, he's like one of the craziest lyricists I've ever heard in my life. Like him and Eminem are just like absolute nutballs. But yeah, no, that was my whole world growing up, like 2000s hip hop and R&B.
So how was it? Because you recently just were featured on a Body Count track, and obviously Body Count is fronted by Ice-T, which is a well-known person in the hip hop world. So how was that melding of worlds? And did you get to was it something that you just did remotely, or was that something where you linked up with anybody?
I did it at the same studio. He wasn't there though. But dude, he's awesome. I've met him so many times. He's hooked me up with his son where we played a bunch of video games together. His son's actual name is Ice, which is crazy. Ice Marrow, like wild. But yeah, no, that was such a cool situation to get a phone call for. Just like Will hit me up randomly. He's like, "Want to be on a Body Count album?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah. How did that work? Did he just show?
So Vince, their bass player, really likes Fit for an Autopsy, and he asked Will. He's like, "Do you think Joe would do a song with Body Count?" I'm like, "100%." He's like, "All right, let me ask Ice." So he Vince said he was talking to Ice. He actually like sent me a video of it. And he asked him like, "What do you think about, like, would you want Joe from Fit on the record?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, I would want Joe on the record. That would be awesome." And then when I heard his voice say that, I was like, "God damn, that is so fucking cool."
I'm gonna go start watching NIS or whatever, Law and Order.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. My grandma was like, "Isn't that the guy from Law and Order?" And I was like, "Yes, Grandma, it is." Yeah.
My mom loves Ice-T.
Oh, dude, who doesn't love Ice-T? Yeah, how is he not lovable? He's like
crazy.
He's the most down to earth, humble celebrity I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I don't think I'll ever have like another great experience of meeting someone who's like on a superstar platform like that. Yeah. That is just like one of the most humble dudes and like loves metal and hardcore. Like loves his thrash metal, like huge into it. And like, he's always been a huge supporter of it. And it's like, it's not like he makes a shit ton of money doing that. It's something that he enjoys doing, and he like will always support it. So like that is the coolest shit on the planet. Like he's my favorite person on the planet.
I saw a Body Count play with Slayer at Lemoore in like 93.
Wow.
In Brooklyn. And back then he would just play a show, and then in between sets, he would just walk around the crowd and like meet people. And I'm like a little kid. I was like a sophomore or junior in high school.
I was 4 years old.
Shut up. I was with my neighbor and fuck you, Joe.
I was a little older than 4. I'm there with you, dude.
All right. I get it. Silver pubes over here. I know.
I was like 11, 10 years old.
I got some silvers.
But so it's just like crazy to like, and now like he's talking about our stuff on the internet and saying how we support them and they support us. And like, there's pictures of him holding our record. And it's like, that's the stuff that's mind blowing to me. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the coolest shit about this job. When people ask me, what's cool about your job? Playing big shows is great. You know, making a living playing music, great. Getting to go places and work with different companies and stuff, all cool. But the coolest part is when somebody respects your band that you grew up looking at in a way that shaped where you ended up. You know, if it wasn't for Exodus and, you know, Body Count and like Slayer and all these different bands, none of us would have these jobs. So those guys and girls and people take a look and go, wow, this is really cool. Like this band is worth looking at. Like Matt from Trivium, and then Gary Holt, and then, you know, Rob from Machine Head are like talking about our records on the internet. And, you know, this is the goofiest shit I'm ever going to say. But when somebody that you look up to follows you on Instagram, or comments on your new record release, like Rob from Death Angel just added me on Instagram, and I was like a little giddy kid, you know what I mean? Like that's
some kind of validation, you know,
huge validation. So like, to me, that's the stuff that shows me like, hey, you know what? Like I might not be rich. I might have to work a regular job. I might have to do all those things, but this is still worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are paying attention.
It's one of those things where the people you look up to somehow in a really weird roundabout way become peers. And you know, like not to the same level as what you probably, you know, deal with at that particular point, but like it happens to us as well, like with Lambgoat or whatever. It's like coming from somewhere, you know, and then being like, dude, the access that you get, or the access that the relationships you make and the text messages you receive and, you know, the DMs or whatever, as time goes on, you know, like fucking 19-year-old me, 18-year-old me who just started getting into like metal and hardcore would never have fathomed that I would, you know, be talking to bands on a regular on the podcast and off the podcast, you know, via private message or calls or whatever. So like there's many days where me and the boys are just like, what the fuck is life? You know what I mean? Or something will happen, like we'll meet Fred Durst at Rockville, and I'm just like, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was like my moment when I got that call. I was like, is this happening right now? Like, that's wild.
Did you pull like one of those, I'm sorry, did you pull like the half-baked thing where you're like, fuck you, I'm out, you're cool.
Yeah, you're cool, and I'm out.
I'm gonna shine a light on Joe. One of my proudest moments in this band was when Joe filled in for Lambgoat.
Nice,
That was like, I sat back and I was like, God, look at what that's huge to have.
That was my biggest, like, is this fucking happening right now?
Mark Wahlberg superstar moment.
Yeah. Imagine this, like, Randy is like a legend and Lamb of God is like the biggest band in our genre right now, right? Like that is like the biggest, I would say, arguably,
the biggest metal bands in the world. Yeah.
Slipknot, Lamb of God, right? Like that's the way we can look at it. Slipknot, Lamb of God, right?
Yeah.
So a guy from a huge band told a guy from a huge band, hey, if you need somebody to fill in for you, this is the guy. So Matt from Trivium, if if I miss anything, Joe,
no, you're right.
Matt from Trivium told Randy, hey, this dude could do it. You know, I know you got the COVID, so call this guy.
Well, I think it was actually Randy was just talking to Matt about it. I was just like, hey, do you have that dude Joe Bad's number? He's like, yes. I was like, wow, that's wild. Yeah.
That conversation is crazy, right? Like one of my proudest moments for the band, because like if it didn't exist, then Joe wouldn't have gotten this opportunity to get to work with his heroes.
Yeah.
You know, that's so cool. That's the coolest thing ever to me, is like the little things that happen. And that's maybe not little, but you know what I mean? Like stuff that not everybody has to do with, but you get those opportunities because of the hard work you do. So that was a great moment. And, you know, like talk about pressure and, Joe just handled it with grace, and we ended up doing a tour with them. And I'm sure that had 85% to do because Joe is a fucking sweetheart. And those dudes were probably like, yeah, let's take this band out. And then so many opportunities have opened from that. But for those guys to take Joe seriously and take the name of the band seriously and take our brand and put it under a spotlight, and then for Joe to be as professional and smart and good at what he did to do that, like there's so many fucking great moments involved in that, you know, that's the coolest shit.
That's, how did the Joe, you may or may not know this, obviously, because you're on stage or whatnot, but like, what was the reception of the crowd for that? Because obviously, like, you know, a lot of people are probably coming expecting Randy, and then Joe Bad just walks on stage, and obviously you got.
It was actually really crazy because, you know, I was just about to step up on the stage, the big curtains in front of the stage, so like no one could see anything, and I'm like looking at the banner, and I'm like, what the hell? And then like I have my in-ears in, so I can't hear anything. And so I see all the guys like waving like this, like, come over here and hang out with us. And I was like, oh shit, I'm coming. So I get over there. They're like, take your ear out, because they don't play with in-ears. They just have monitors. They're old school. Love it. I just nervous. So I was like, I can't miss anything. So he's like, take your ear out. Do you hear that? And I was like, holy shit. Like the room is chanting my name.
Oh,
like,
nice.
It was crazy. Like before we even got on stage, they're just chanting my name. And I was like, that is sick. I was like petrified that they were just like, where the fuck is Randy? Yeah. But like, you know, I flubbed up some of the lyrics a little bit here in like a bunch of spots. And like the crowd helped me out with a lot of it. And I had like a big, I had all the lyrics written on a sheet.
Like a printed out teleprompter on the floor.
And I literally just kept kicking him across, and like I accidentally kicked too hard and kicked too many pages and lost my spot completely. And everyone in the front row is just like dying laughing, but like they all like helped me out figure out where I was. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, great. And it was great. Honestly, the reception there was really cool. And like at the end of the set, it was just like an uproar. Like everyone was just like super supportive. I would assume I probably did a pretty okay job. I felt pretty good about it. I like didn't sleep the night before. I was like petrified.
I would assume so, yeah.
I couldn't sleep at all. I was like staring at my eyelids. And then on the plane flight over there, I was just like
the flame
jamming
flight.
the songs.
He was so nervous about it. It fucked him up right now. The flame
He's
flight.
nervous right now talking about it. Look at
literally.
it. Well, I'll tell you what, no matter what he says, like even still to this day, was that 2 years ago, Joe?
Yeah.
Almost 3 maybe? There are still constantly comments about that. I saw Joe the first time at Lamb of God, and he's a great singer. And
it was crazy. Someone came to one of our shows. He was outside in the rain, and he had a big poster board, and it was one of the lyric sheets that I had tossed out at the end of the set. So he laminated it and was like standing out in the rain with it. And I was like, oh my God, get out of the rain. Come here. And like, I signed it for him, and I was like, this is so cool to see this like in the wild. Like someone still has this, you know. I love to see it. It's super cool.
Well, luckily you took a risk and you quit cutting hair and quit a cushy kind of situation, or about maybe not even cushy, just a more.
I was cushioned. I was feeling pretty good. Yeah.
It was a risky situation to jump from that to into the frying pan, and next thing you know, a couple years later, you're fronting Lamb of God for a night.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you know what? And when you look back at all that stuff, it's just like everything I've done is absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
You know.
I want to end on this. I want to know Pat's favorite Steely Dan song, and I want to know Joe's favorite Michael Jackson song.
Son of a bitch, don't do that to me. Every song's a banger, dude.
This is so easy for me. I'm already ready. You want to go first, Joe? Because yours is going to be a struggle?
I need a minute.
Okay. I'll give you the long explanation. Give Joe a chance to think. So.
Man in the mirror. Sorry, you don't get a chance. Man in the mirror.
I was going to reference that earlier. I was going to reference that song earlier.
I'm under pressure, and bam, there he is.
It's just that one just hits so hard for me. I don't know, like it's just
the man in the mirror.
Yeah, just like, look at yourself.
I was a kid dancing around.
How do you value yourself? You know.
I didn't even know what it was about. I remember jamming that as a kid in my living room in my underwear or something like that. Just fucking
like take a look at yourself, man. And that was like it meant a lot to me growing up.
Gotcha.
All right.
Steely Dan.
So I will say every Steely Dan song is a close second. Everyone. I can't think of one I don't like, but what I'll tell you is my favorite Steely Dan record is Asia, and my favorite song off of that record is a song called Home at Last. Piano intro, guitar work is incredible. Bernard Purdy plays drums.
Bernard Purdy, dude.
Bernard Purdy. He plays drums. Purdy Shuffle, like it's a whole big thing. And the lyrics are about having the hardest time in your life and going through some of the worst things in your life, but not wanting to run from it. Home at last. This is where I'm supposed to be. It's a struggle. Things are hard, but this is where I'm meant to be. This is who I want to be. So it's about like discovering through the struggle that it's the place you need to be. If you go read the lyrics, it's about like there's like some references to being in a storm on a ship, and this whole thing remaining tied to the mast is like one of the main lines in the chorus. I've found my home at last. It's like this is the struggle that I've been looking for my whole life. So it's like a beautiful, like interesting, huge song, and it has a lot to do like personally for the struggles I've been through and where I want to be, and there's something about it just clicks with me. It's a perfect song. You
sure it's not because it was after Deacon Blues and Peg and it was just like the song after that you were just like, hey, I like this deep cut.
I love that I love that you're challenging me with your Steely Dan stuff, but I mean we could go switch from that, and then we could talk about Night by Night, or we could go to like Gaucho, and like we could talk about like that record or Babylon Sisters. Like there's all these different songs, but that anytime anyone asks me, if you listen to that, the piano intro, as soon as it starts, I'm like, man, this is the one. That's the song.
I do listen to the Decades album a lot because obviously it's just banger and banger and banger and banger, but
dude,
it is what it is.
Even like all of them, Katie Lied, Pretzel Logic, like there's not a bad record. And if you go through my like music history or whatever, and you look through like my saved records, like you'll be like, well, this is weird. He doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. But then you get to the Steely Dan one, it's just like,
yeah.
And then like all the Donald Fagen stuff, I have all that stuff. Like I'm actually gonna get a Walter Becker portrait tattooed on me, hopefully sometime this year, because he was they were smart. Like they did a lot of like bringing in the right musicians, like Steve Gadd was on a bunch of their stuff.
You know, they don't do that a lot. I mean, they may do, but they don't do it like to that extent to where I was thinking about this the other day, how like Steely Dan probably just wrote most of that shit in the studio just fucking around. But also record labels and amount of money spent on studio and time and all that other stuff is completely different back then than it is now. So I can see, I understand why it doesn't happen like that now. But, you know, I think back sometimes, I'm like, these three dudes or these handful of dudes or whatever, just in there just like cranking out these weird songs that just end up being like classics.
They're from New Jersey too.
Yeah.
Kendall Park. Yep.
I'm
3 times over from where I grew up, man.
I may have to go listen to it after this.
Dude, I was listening to it on the way here, man. It's funny. It's like, it'll be like Devourment, Steely Dan, Slayer, John Mayer. You know what I mean? Like it's so broken, like my musical taste. But I don't know. There's something about that band and something about the things they talk about. It's like it's like about drugs and college girls and like all this stuff. But like there's like this vibe of desperation in everything. And like
they're all like nerds. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're really just nerds, and they just became popular because they're in a fucking sick band. You know what I mean? And so they're just singing.
It's so sick, dude. Yeah. And Donald Fagen stuff, like there's his like solo record and like all incredible stuff, man. You cannot. And also a band, you want to talk about a band that every record is kind of different. Like, you know what I mean? Like you cannot listen to a Steely Dan record and like Asia's like the culmination for me. Like that's everything that they ever did. You know, it's all there. But like you go back to their early stuff and it's just this simple rock and roll that just drugs and studio time and all these things just develop this craziness all the way through, like to like where you're hearing like sweet picked stuff that dudes use in metal bands now, just done in a way that it fits the jazz lines that they're playing, you know, and like perfect music.
Awesome. Well, boys, it's been like 15 minutes, 16 minutes over my usual time, which I don't care, but you know, I got other
I was late, so I figure I got to give you a little extra, you know what I mean?
It's all good. It's all good. But, what was it? Oh, yes. Nothing That Is out October 25th via Nuclear Blast. Hostage is currently out. Stream that. By the time you listen to this, I'm sure another song may be out. I'm not completely sure when you're going to release another single, but I think we got a week or two before this one comes out. So, yeah, Joe, Pat, thank you for your time today, and I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.